Hello, this is Mertat Hariri, CEO and President, Canadian Science Policy Centre, and we are at the 16th Canadian Science Policy Conference in Ottawa, November 2024. And I am honored and pleased to be joined with Mr. Daan DuToit, Deputy Director General, International Cooperation and Resources, the South African Department of Science, Technology and Innovation. Welcome, Mr. DuToit.
Thank you very much, Merdat. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's so wonderful to have you with us, and this is not the first time that you are here. You're not a stranger to CSPC. Yeah. When was the last time that you were with us?
The last time I was here was in 2019.
2019.
Yes,
that's
so
right.
5 years ago. It was a milestone because at the time we signed a new agreement with Canada, which we actually renewed at this time. So CSPC has become a very important milestone in our relations with Canada.
Wonderful. It's a pleasure to have you here. And I assume that you're here with the delegation of South African colleagues for the renewal of the science and technology agreement with Canada. Could you please speak to that?
Yes. So indeed, I'm here with delegation, with colleagues from me in the ministry, from the government department, but also from our main research funding agency, and indeed individual scientists working in scientific disciplines with which we work with Canada. So in 2019, we had concluded a memorandum of understanding with our counterparts in the Canadian government, that's ICET, Innovation, Science and Economic Development, which saw a very fruitful policy dialogue on science, technology and innovation, but also a range of collaboration initiatives, ranging from research infrastructure partnerships, support for researcher mobility, research exchange, and then collaborative R&D. And on this occasion, the two governments decided to renew the collaboration. We had a very fruitful bilateral discussion with someone who I know is also a friend of CSPC, Deputy Minister Nipan Watts, and then renewed the agreement. And CSPC is really the perfect background for us to do that because it provides us with insight into the latest science and innovation developments in Canada and also a wonderful networking platform.
So great to hear that, and glad that the agreement is renewed for another 5 years.
Correct.
I believe.
Yeah.
Okay. And could you tell us what you hope to get more out of these collaborations, especially in the second 5 years of agreements beyond the first one?
So before I look at that, it would be amiss for me not to mention very briefly that this is a historic collaboration, which even predates the signature of the agreement. 30 years ago, South Africa this year, we're celebrating 30 years of democracy. 1994 saw our first democratic elections. And in those first years of a democracy, we benefited enormously from advice and support from the Canadian government through the IDRC to assist us with shaping a science policy and a science system for democratic South Africa. So we already had that solid foundation upon which to build. What we now want to do, looking towards the next 5 years, it's really about using all the building blocks which are in place. We have policy contact, we have contact between our funding agencies, the South African and Canadian funding agencies to support research, and then also active networks. This, for example, a South Africa-Canada Universities Network. And then to focus on some strategic areas where our two countries share a common interest. One would be, for example, health innovation and pandemic preparedness. Everyone learned a lot of lessons from COVID-19, and we now want to put that in good use by bolstering our respective health science systems, science advice for policy, in anticipation of perhaps future pandemics. But we're also looking at areas such as the marine and polar sciences. Of course, Canada and South Africa share the Atlantic Ocean, you in the north and we in the south. But there's huge commonality in our science missions, for example, on understanding the interface between science, the ocean and weather. How do we manage marine biodiversity, and then also polar research. Of course, we, again, the South-North, Canada, world leader in Arctic research. South Africa has a research station in Antarctica, where we have regular science missions there. And then we'll also be looking at new growth areas for the economy, for example, the green transition, hydrogen economy, but also digitization, impact of artificial intelligence, quantum computing. So yeah, a rich menu. What we do value from the South Africa-Canadian partnership is the shared policy perspective, real warmth, personal relations, and then the conviction that we work together informed by the values of co-ownership, co-responsibility, and mutual benefit for this collaboration.
Excellent. And I'm just curious to see how this agreement last 5 years and what
Yeah.
you hope to see in the next 5 years have really increased the, let's say, research collaborations between individual researchers, universities. Have been seen an increase in those?
We've done some analysis, scientometric analysis, and there has been an important increase in the number, for example, of co-authored publications by South African and Canadian researchers. We also see our researchers working increasingly together in multilateral programs. Not only for Canada, but also for South Africa is Canada's full association to Horizon Europe. Good news, because South Africa is very active in the Horizon program. So in a number of these multilateral partnerships, we see a strong link between South Africa and Canada emerging. We see increase in, for example, postdoc exchanges, etc., and all that really augurs well for future collaboration. And then would be amiss for me not to mention in the past year, which has been for us a tremendous milestone in South Africa-Canadian collaboration. Canada became a full member of the Square Kilometre Array Observatory, SKA Observatory, which is the world's largest radio telescope, a significant component of which is located in South Africa. So to have Canada, a historic radio astronomy nation, on board for us is absolutely fantastic news.
Excellent news to hear, and thank you for sharing with that. I just want to touch base on two other topics, and that's the first is G20.
Yes.
So South Africa has the presidency of G20 in upcoming meeting, and I would like to know from the perspective of science, technology, innovation, and your department, what are the things that you have in mind to put on the agenda of G20 when it comes to STI?
Yes. So first of all, I should say that over the past few years, we saw very strong collaboration between South Africa and Canada in the G20 forums, specifically for science and innovation. We often share the same policy perspectives. And there's now a dedicated track, to use the jargon of the G20, for science, technology, and innovation, called the Research and Innovation Working Group. South Africa will have the privilege of chairing this track in 2025. We formally take the chair on the 1st of December, taking over from Brazil. So I cannot officially talk to you about our priorities, but between friends and CSPC, I can announce what the recommended priorities are, which I'm quite confident will be the ones. So our overall theme is going to be the role of science, technology, and innovation in advancing sustainable development, which again we believe is a policy perspective South Africa and Canada share. We're going to then look at 3 individual priorities. First of all, open innovation. How do we harness open innovation, building on the strong foundation which has been laid recently with international partnership in open science? Open innovation really as an instrument and a platform for inclusive development. We believe that in responding to the various challenges we face, food security, climate change, that spirit of collaboration, public-private, between nations in innovation is absolutely essential. Then we're going to look at a very specific discipline which we believe do not often receive sufficient attention, and that's biodiversity. So the science of biodiversity. How do we as humanity really take ownership for the sustainable management of our biodiversity resources, for its protection, and then what are the science, technology, and innovation investments needed, for example, research infrastructure, data collection, to allow us to use science for biodiversity management. And then the third area will be a topic which I was very happy but not surprised to see receiving prominent attention here at CSPC, and that is inclusivity, accessibility, equity and diversity in science, looking at gender, looking at other aspects of demographics like race, age, strong focus on the role. This is a common policy priority for South Africa and Canada. Indigenous knowledge system, working with traditional holders of knowledge, and looking how we mainstream that as part of the scientific enterprise. So those will be the 3 topics: open innovation, biodiversity, and inclusivity in science.
Excellent to hear those. And to what extent other members, I'm sure Canada is in line with those objectives, but could you speak that other G20 members are on board with these topics that you mentioned, especially to STI?
We always encouraged when we are in G20 and also other multilateral forums that old adage which a lot of people use, that science knows no borders, that often rings true. And that even though we may come from jurisdictions, different countries where there may be political differences, economic tensions, that in the world of science, technology, and innovation, there's a lot of common understanding and a perspective that we need to work together in solidarity, because that's how science has always worked. I mean, science is per definition international enterprise. Now, of course, we are realistic. We live, sadly, in times of increased geopolitical tension. We know that both for South Africa and Canada, we are historically countries committed to multilateralism, to partnership. So it may not all be plain sailing. There may be some differences. But if there are differences, true to the spirit of science, we'll talk about them. And we'll seek to understand each other and then reach consensus. So we look forward to the G20 discussions and a vibrant debate, because that we believe is consistent with the values of science.
That's so wonderful to hear. And of course, that by default, these collaborations strengthen the science, the spirit of science diplomacy.
Yes. As
we all hope to expand the collaborations across all nations. Would you hope for a boost of science diplomacy after?
Most definitely. And it was very interesting also to follow a whole range of debates here on science diplomacy at CSPC. We believe that the soft power of science has enormous potential to bring countries together, to bring people together. We need science diplomacy to respond to all the key societal challenges we've already spoken about, and we believe that science can often be that common ground where countries can find each other. So it's an optimistic statement, but we are very well aware we live in troubled times. So we think that the need for science diplomacy is more important than ever, and we think that both countries like South Africa and Canada, who are very strongly committed to science diplomacy, will have a very important role to play. Canada, of course, take the leadership of the G7 next year, and we think this is probably quite a unique opportunity to have two countries heading respectively G20 and G7, which have a strong partnership and a very strong policy dialogue. So, of course, there will be appropriate processes to conduct those engagements, but informal discussions have started between ourselves and our Canadian friends, and now we can advance in appropriate areas the G20 and G7 agenda together.
That's so wonderful. So I won't ask more questions because some of them I know about these agendas, but it's good that the discussions are happening, the alignment of G20 and G7. So good to hear. My last question about CSPC, as I said, you have been here before and you had the chance to explore the conference this year again. Let's ask from a non-Canadian guest from South Africa. How do you feel about the CSPC? What is the value that it offers if you want to evaluate the conference and the center?
I think three key reasons why I really believe that CSPC, even if one is non-Canadian, or perhaps even especially if you're non-Canadian, that is worth attending. I mean, first of all, it is Canada is a major science nation globally, and this is an ideal opportunity within a number of days to meet anyone who's anyone in Canadian science. Seen so many old contacts, friends, made many new fruitful relations, and then just in the various debates and sessions, one get. I think CSPC really has its finger on the pulse of what's happening in Canadian science and innovation. So in terms of strengthening collaboration with Canada, it's certainly the place to be. Also the exhibition, very informative, engaging with the various universities and others. And then secondly, there's a lot of policy learning, because even if we are on the other end of our planet, at the southern tip of Africa, different economic contexts, a lot of the science policy challenges we face are the same. Just the context may differ slightly. And listening to debates and how Canada approaches big science policy questions, we learn a lot. Just yesterday, for example, listening to the discussions on large research infrastructures and how those investments should be made. Those are issues we face in South Africa. So it's a very rich, compact but informative program for policy learning. And then lastly, just to go back to where we spoke about a while ago, it's a wonderful place just to strengthen personal relations in the spirit of science. So a real valued platform for science diplomacy, and we wish you all the very best, and certainly look forward to returning in future.
Absolutely, and thank you very much. And again, we are so pleased to have you here. You don't have to wait for another 5 years to come back for another science technology agreement. We look forward to see you next year and the following years.
Thank you very much.
It was a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you.